live before a lock show. Chat, give me a thumbs up if you can see us. I keep bouncing between platforms here, so I'm hoping sound and all of that is working out. But we are on with NFL Live Before Lock. This is the Sunday night showdown slate presented by Fantasy Draft. And I, of course, am your old pal Emac. And I'm joined by my partner in crime, Eric in Chicago. What do we got going on this week, Eric?
Man, we got an exciting game ahead of us. We got the LA Rams hosting the Seattle Seahawks, big NFC West matchup. Excited for tonight's game. Should be a good one. Looking forward to it. We also have this New England game still in the closing minutes. New England, Kansas City, New England on the move. So we'll try to keep you guys in the loop as we go through breaking down tonight's game. We're excited for it. And on another note, EMAC, I'll give you credit for another win last week. Moving to 3-2, it's 2 in a row for you. Beat me in our showdown matchup, but I'm ready for you tonight.
I have to make this a habit because that's what are we like 3-2 now? So it's really not that much of a difference. But hey, you're only as good as your last victory here.
That's exactly right. And you had a good one last week. So I'm ready. I think I did extra research for tonight's game. Really feeling confident, and I think I'm ready for you. So you're going down. We'll see where it lands, though. Exciting game. We'll be breaking it down for you guys tonight, leading until kickoff at 7:20 Central, 8:20 Eastern. Breaking it down. Hey, position by position, team by team. Feel free to drop in your comments, questions. We'll try to get to them throughout the show. We'll get some strategy stuff. We'll break down our lineups, and again, giving you all the last-minute info leading up until kickoff tonight. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at Emac's article on Awesemo.com, first of all, shame on you. You're missing out. We'll cover some of those things as well as projections in tonight's game. Emac, before we get into the projections, who do you like tonight?
Well, being a Seattle fan, I'm going to have to go with Seattle. That's just that's just how I'm going to have to roll. I'm going to go with the team I was a fan of since I knew about football. And here we are. They actually started in 1977 out there in the Pacific Northwest. So I started following them that year. I would have been in second grade.
Wow. Taking us back. Were those the old royal blue, green, and silver uniforms?
Oh, yes. You can see now I get to do it. It's my Steve Largent autographed picture. It says, to Eric, kick ass at DFS, Steve Largent. There you go. For
those of us that don't know who Steve Largent is, Matt, can you?
He's a congressman from Oklahoma. No. He actually, when he retired, he held all of the major receiving records. He had the most catches, the most yards, the most touchdowns, and the longest consecutive streak of games with a single catch. And then Jerry Rice came along, and before Rice, I think 3 different people took one took each of his records, and then Rice came back and consolidated them, if I remember correctly. But he was very good. Lucked out to have him on a very, very bad expansion team.
Well, you know what? Most expansion teams don't start off too well. I think, although unless you're like the Carolina Panthers and Jacksonville Jaguars, those 2 teams like threw together a playoff team right away. But we won't get into that tonight. We're talking showdown tonight. So Emac likes the Seahawks. I think a lot of people are probably going to be on the Seahawks. I myself do think Seahawks will win tonight as well. It's hard to bet against Mr. Dangerous Russell Wilson. He's been on fire lately, but he's been spreading the ball around, and not just Russell. That ground game between Penny and Carson, they've been tearing it up. Interesting to see where who leads in carries tonight. We'll get into that. Also interesting to see where Tyler Lockett, how he fares tonight. He's been a bit underwhelming as of late, so I know a lot of people will be interested to see where he lands tonight as far as targets, as far as production goes. So that's one of the questions I think looking into tonight's matchup.
I think underwhelming for Lockett is a generous assessment.
So, are you feeling a rebirth for tonight?
No, I am not. Now, here's my first question for you. because I know you know some of the matchups perhaps a little bit better than I do. Will Jalen Samuels, not Jalen, I'm sorry, Jalen Ramsey, will he shadow Lockett? Is he a shadow guy?
He is a shadow guy. I don't know that he's going to shadow Lockett, though.
Has Lockett lost the wide receiver one respect, and perhaps he does not need a shadow?
So I think it's one of those things where Russell, he takes what the defense gives him, and he's not afraid to spread the ball around. He's shown that as of late. There's been a lot of different guys getting touchdown passes, touchdown receptions. And, since Lockett had that leg injury, something just hasn't quite been the same. Now, my guess, he's probably playing through some injuries, playing through some pain right now. And as a wide receiver, if you don't quite have that same explosiveness as far as, getting off the line of scrimmage, creating space out in the field, it's going to be tough to perform. So while he does carry the weight with his name, something tells me there's more going on there that they're not really shedding any light into, and rightfully so. They don't have to. Even having his presence out there, I think, goes a long way. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and some people in chat, and I literally don't know what the right answer is, which is why I moved my camera, which is why I was just sort of asking on that, because they're saying Lockett's not shadow worthy. Ramsey's going to be on DK Metcalf. Rams are going to put a safety on top of Lockett. I don't know what they're going to do. That just tends to be a bit of a situation where I don't know. I mean, I guess he's always kind of there if they need a cooler, shall we say? Like if somehow Lockett gets hot again, but. It's been 3 weeks. He's had let me get the numbers up. I think he's had 9 targets. This is Lockett over the last 3 weeks. He had 3 last week and played on 88% of the snaps. I just needed 9 points and I would have won $1,000. I was in 9th place on the through Monday minimax. Nobody passed me. And remember, they were talking a little bit about the flu. He potentially has the flu. Well, he didn't really, and he was out there for 88% of the snaps, but he did absolutely nothing. If I would have had literally 7 different players I could have pivoted to because I had him in flex and I had the salary for it, I would have won $1,000. So I'm not mad. I investigated what the hell happened. And it looks like it just... Wilson will take what the defense gives him. If we look at Lockett, he played 88, 86, and 72% of the snaps each of the last 3 weeks. 9 total targets, 4 for 64. The week prior to that, so 4 weeks ago, was the overtime against Tampa Bay, and he had, 19 targets, 150 yards. One of the 2 times he's gone over 150 yards this season, and he can't remember if he had 1 or 2 touchdowns. So he can get it done. I just don't know if it's going to be tonight. We know that the other thing I wanted to point out is this year, 29% of Russell Wilson's touchdowns have gone to tight ends. Last year it was a quarter. He's not afraid to go to the tight ends. These are nameless, faceless casts of thousands that the Seahawks have been putting out there, and he just goes to them. I mean, even when he had... now I'm forgetting the receiver that retired this last year. I'm going to lose my...
Doug Baldwin.
Thank you. I'm going to lose my Seahawks credibility. Stanford's Doug Baldwin. But even then, he didn't always go to him. And there was a random slot receiver guy that down the stretch for 3 years in a row was much like Derrick Henry. It's Mr. December. It was touchdown time for Baldwin, basically from week 14 on the last few seasons. So Wilson he's going to do what he needs to do. Lest we think Wilson is bad, leads the league with 26 touchdowns on the team that rushes the 3rd most in the league. That's pretty impressive.
It is. And Emac, you know what? I gotta say, it does sound like you're a little mad about the Lockett thing from last week.
I'm bitter. I had 3 different lineups with that. They were in various size contests. I could have changed any one of them, and it would have been worth a few $100. But the Minimax one, I could have won a Minimax. I haven't won a Minimax, and I think I had 20 entries in it. I don't max it out with 150. So damn it. Next time. We'll get it next time.
Next time. That's, what the good thing is, there's, at least for most weeks, there's always next week, right? So let's get into it tonight. We've talked about some of the highlights, some of the things to look into for tonight. Not too many injuries of note on either side of the ball, really. We talked about Lockett. He's playing. Nobody else is really banged up. Anything that's come in last minute, Emac, that you're aware of?
No, shoot. I forgot to look at the inactives, but let's pull that up right now. There wasn't anybody we were waiting on that I remember, but let's see if there's any surprises here. And, oh my gosh, they actually have them on NFL.com, my favorite place to get them, literally, but they are so bad. Okay, Luke Wilson, tiny bit of a surprise, but Hollister has literally had every target for the last 5 weeks. So that's...
You should have been considering Wilson tonight.
Yeah, we shouldn't have been looking at him, so no real surprise. That's not going to move the needle. We knew Gerald Everett was going to be out, and then the remainder are defensive players, but none of them are a surprise either. So no surprise changes there. So that is good. But if you somehow still have little fractions of points for some of these players, you may want to get them out of your optimizer of choice or zero them out.
Well, let's get on to it, shall we? Let's start with. We've already started with them. Let's just roll right into it. The visiting Seattle Seahawks, the favorites by a point. If they win tonight, they will jump back into the lead of the NFC West. As of right now, where it sits, the 49ers are in that spot. But again, if they win,
what a game, by the way! What a
game! Yes, if you
damn it,
the early games today. If you weren't, you missed out. It seems like this time of the year, there's always like one game that just. For me, last year it was that Chiefs-Rams game. It was the Monday Nighter that went like, each team put up 50-something points.
102 points.
Yeah, that seemed like today's game. It was just two great teams. I think most people probably thought there'd be less points scored than there were, but it made it surely exciting to watch. If you guys didn't see, New England looks like they just lost. Kansas City did eke out of New England with the win. So New England's lost 2 in a row now.
Wow!
With a chink in the armor.
Even after they tried to send the equipment to the wrong airport.
I didn't hear about that.
So Kansas City was still missing, and I don't know how it works. I would have thought you would have shipped your stuff out earlier, but 35 players' equipment was not yet at the stadium this morning, and it went to the airport. Somehow it ended up in like New Jersey. I was only reading headlines and tweets. I wasn't looking at the article because I was busy doing other stuff, preparing for the NBA slate that we just got done doing that show for. But yeah, they ended up getting there, I don't know, 45 minutes before kickoff. But it was one of those things where the NFL said, if you guys don't have the equipment, it's a forfeit. You're not ready to play. When was the last time there was a forfeit?
Could you imagine? The last time would have had to have been like when the Colts left Baltimore. Right, and they packed up the band and they packed up all the equipment overnight and took off. That's the only time that I can think back.
Yeah,
that may have been an issue.
Yeah, I don't know, because otherwise everything else. I mean, we've seen games postponed till Tuesday. We've seen games move sites because of forest fires, postponed because of snow, et cetera, but not because the equipment didn't show up.
That's fair. Well, let's get on to tonight's game. I think both teams do have their equipment. Wait, let me check. Yep, we've verified both teams have all of their equipment for tonight's matchup, so we're good there. Starting with the Seahawks, Mr. Russell Wilson, we've already talked about him. What more can you say other than, are you starting him in every lineup? Is he he's the most expensive player. Is he someone you're looking in that captain spot, or are you looking for some more value later?
I have my captain locked in, and it's not Russell Wilson.
Okay.
There you go. So Russell Wilson is in consideration for the top 3. I had Russell Wilson actually as my captain on the road in the last game, and was that one at home? That one was at home. I'm sorry. I had him as my captain, and some people were coming after me on Twitter saying, you said this was going to be a running game. Why did you pick Wilson? So I need to read this again. This is on all of my articles above the ranking. It says, single game ranking, taking into account projected production, pricing, and popularity. We can't just have a pick 'em because we would all just rank them however the projections are. So you've got to have nuances, and I was willing to go that route. Now, it helped my cause a little bit that Wilson then had 2 touchdowns after that, but it was, he had a mediocre game, but I didn't know both running backs were going to get touchdowns. So here's my thought on Wilson. I like him. you don't have to play him with a receiver. I've said it so Russell Wilson, captain, only has to play with one of the guys, and I included the tight ends and running backs. For Goff, I'm saying that rule needs to be 2, because I think if Goff gets there, it's going to be with more people. I don't know who the hell Wilson's going to throw it to, and there may not be yardage backing it up, making these guys good plays. So I don't want to hamstring. I don't mind Wilson, but it could go to Hollister, but the yardage could go to Lockett. They could go to Metcalf, but the yardage goes to the running backs. I just don't know. But I want Russell Wilson in my lineups. Not fired up quite as a captain, but definitely he'll be one of my top 3 captains. But he will probably be on the majority of my lineups. No question about that. I think as we move into the running backs, I think you can actually play both of them in the same lineup. I went back and forth. Do I need to set a rule saying I only want one? My answer is no. And here's why. Over the last, 4 games, where's my notes? I think it's over the last, since week 7. So what is that? We're now in week 14 and they had their bye. So with 6, we'll call that 5 games. In the last 5 games, only 2 Seattle running backs have received snaps. It's not carries, not touches, snaps. That's Penny and that's Carson. You can play them both. Here's their over their last 2 games. Carson played 35 and 39 snaps. Penny played 30 and 35. They each have 6 targets. Now those weren't balanced. Penny had 5 in one and 1 in the other, and I think Carson had 4 and 2. Carson has caught 5 for 38. Penny has 4 for 33 for a touchdown. So it's almost identical other than the touchdown. Rushing, it's Penny, 29 attempts, 203 yards, 3 touchdowns. Carson, 31 attempts. So these attempts, these targets, the snaps, the everything are basically even. If one of them gets hurt, yes, that should help the other one. But there's no third back out there, and this is damn near a split timeshare. So I think you can play both of them with the Seahawks proclivity for the run. I wanted to go in there saying I want a rule where that doesn't happen, but the only way that benefits you is if somebody gets hurt. And I can't get there. So I'm not going to stop it from happening. You should look. I'd want maybe a third of my lineups. It could be like that, of where I have one or the other. A third can have both. So I don't want it everywhere, but I'm not going to stop it from happening.
It's going to be interesting to see where it goes. And I think a lot of people are probably with you, EMAC, and I'm one of those right there with you. It's just so hard to call where Russell's going to go with the ball. I think you made a great point there about the yardage to touchdowns. Who gets the yards, who gets the touchdowns, spread around quite a bit. Then you got guys like Josh Gordon into the mix, who, while he hasn't been used a ton over the first 2 weeks that he's been with the team, you got to believe that's going to increase over time. So what does that mean for the other receivers on this team? Who knows? It's going to be interesting to see where that ball gets spread around tonight. I think the 2 running back point is interesting for a team that loves to run the ball like Seattle does. I think the other team that's similar to them is obviously San Francisco. They're committed to the run. So 2 running backs probably isn't out of the question. I'm not going to tip my hand into my lineup just yet, but I do like the Seattle running backs tonight. It's hard not to. Let's talk about those wide receivers, though, EMAC. There's a lot of options. So as our resident Seattle guru, we know Tyler Lockett. We know his struggles as of late. We know about DK Metcalf. Who else do we like? David Moore? Do we like, who's that other guy out there besides Lockett that you're looking at? Is it Metcalf only, or is there one of those that are kind of the deeper wide receivers that may break one tonight?
Metcalf's 1, Hollister, the tight end, is 2, Lockett is 3, and then it's a grab bag amongst their other guys. Malik Turner, I don't think he had a target last week, but he has 1 touchdown, 2 or 3 catches over the last three weeks. And then Moore has 1 touchdown and 2 or 3 catches over the last 3 weeks. Lockett and Metcalf, no touchdowns. Again, Wilson's only had like 1 or 2 each of the last couple weeks, and it's gone to Hollister or Malik Turner or Moore. So, and then you've got Josh Gordon lurking there as well. But I put those other 3 guys as a grab bag. I don't know where to go, so I've elevated Hollister over there because I just don't see anybody else that's going to take away from him.
So are you hearing any grumblings? Like what's the deal with Josh Gordon? Are they trying to get him more involved, or is this just going to be
No,
a
he's playing on about a third of the snaps. I think they want him to get there. I don't think he knows the playbook. I don't think they pass enough, so they don't run a lot of three wide receiver sets, and they've got their two receivers in Metcalf and in Lockett. So I just don't think it's happening as much. They want to get him ready because he's going to be a guy that can be a difference maker in the playoffs, and they really need one. Because how much can you run the ball? I mean, how often can you run and hope that's going to carry the day in with the offenses you're going to be facing in the playoffs? So I think they're still working him in. By week 17, it wouldn't shock me if he's playing closer to half the snaps. It's going to be at the expense of Turner and Moore, but I think we'll see him on the field a little more frequently.
Yeah, he seems to be the third down, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 guy right now. Like they need somebody to make a tough catch in traffic over the middle. Gordon seems to be the one that pops up randomly, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him do that again in tonight's game. I do hope we get another new addition touchdown celebration. If you saw last week, the Seattle Seahawks receivers did an amazing new edition impersonation, and they were just showing it on NBC or
Yeah, I was yelling at the TV because I was like, "There's Lockett! He doesn't have the flu. He's dancing around. Damn it! Catch the ball." Still not bitter. Still not bitter.
So it seems like we're pretty set as far as the wide receiver position goes. We talked a little bit about the running back. I want to take a step back and dive a little bit deeper back into the Seattle running backs. We like both. It's a timeshare. It's a split. So is there a educated guess that you can make, or an educated, prediction if you're picking one or the other? Because it's tough to put your eggs in one basket or the other. It's also tough to make a case of playing two running backs on the same team. So, EMAC, if I'm holding into the fire here, which running back is it for tonight?
So normally I'm a huge Chris Carson fan. Huge.
Why is that?
I thought he did a great job. Last year, I was picking him for the first couple of weeks in our 100 combined yards and a touchdown. I just thought he was solid. I thought Penny might have been a wasted draft pick, etc. Clearly, maybe he just needed a little bit of time to get stuff going, but he looks like he belongs out there now. We can't quite say the same for Ronald Jones Jr. Similar situation, high draft pick, rookie running back, disappointed, showed some flashes this year, but freaking Peyton Barber's always there. Penny now looks to be the equal of Carson. It took a while to get there, but I really think he is. So I think Carson's going to get the first crack at this. I think you can play both of them in the same lineups. On DraftKings, there's a better discount to go with Penny than there is on FanDuel. On FanDuel, I almost want to say I don't have that open, but I think he was like 500 more. It's that close. So over there, salt to taste, but where you get a bit of a discount on DraftKings, I'm actually leaning Penny because I need that money because I want to go with one of the Rams receivers or one of the good Seahawks receivers and both quarterbacks. And we haven't even talked about Todd Gurley yet. So I need savings. I've got to find it in a few spots. But that was the difference maker for me, was to get to Penny. Penny and Carson are not in my main lineup, for what it's worth. This is like what the reveal game where you're trying to see what the other person has. There you go. Battleship. I'm giving up my lineup here to you.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I think we should have different lineups than going into tonight's matchup based on some of the things you're talking about. We touched on the tight end position. It seems like it's Hollister's spot, and pretty much Hollister only. He's been pretty good. He's had some good games last week. Not great from his perspective, but it sounds like Hollister is someone that you're pretty high on tonight.
Yeah, sort of by default. He's just the only guy there, and I feel comfortable with him. He was acquired he was the third guy coming into the season. They picked him up from the Patriots. I think they were swapping picks and placements, so he wasn't like a throw-in, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, we got Jacob Hollister, and you know that Belichick's never going to give up anybody good. And by the way, they needed a tight end too, so it was kind of surprised that they moved him, but they wanted to get that move up in the draft. So he was behind Vannett, he was behind Disley, etc. They traded Vannett, Disley got hurt. It's him, and it's only him. We just said Wilson's inactive, Ed Dixon's hurt. I don't even know who the backup tight end is. I can't think of his name, but Hollister literally has had all of the snaps and all of the targets for several weeks. So
yep. So it's Hollister. Ride or die with Hollister tonight if you're going for a Seahawks tight end. Concluding the Seahawks team, we have first of all, their defense. Is Seattle's defense someone that you consider tonight? Based on your article, it doesn't sound like you're too high on them.
No, not particularly. I think they need to get. I'm actually going with two main lineups here, but I'm flagging the one that I'm going with against you. I had to split them. So let me just copy these in so I can upload it, and then I'll be done. Now, I'm not playing a ton of cash, but I'm in more 3-mans than I expected, so I kind of wanted to shift things around just for those following along and wondering why I'm doing this. I don't always split them like this, but when we talk about the lineups, I'll give the explanation of how why I ended up doing that. But back over here to the Seahawks defense, looking at my notes. So the interesting thing about, let's use this as the transition into Jared Goff as well, because it's important to know what the defense is going to do and what we think of him. So I said it's Dr. Jekyll and Jared Goff was my joke there.
I laughed when I read it.
Yes.
Too.
And then I said Goff has had 4 monster games. I don't know if anybody got that part, but
I LOL'd. You got an LOL out of me.
Excellent. But so Goff has had 4 huge games. 572 yards in week 4, 395 in week 5, 372 in week 8, and then last week 424. Heading into last week, he had 3 single fantasy point performances, single digit. That's horrible. Despite those massive yardage totals where he was averaging, 440 yards per game in those big 4 games, he had 7 total touchdowns in those games. I don't know what's going to happen with Goff. But I liked his price, and I'm hoping people are a little bit nervous about him. He was in consideration for my captain spot, but he did not make it either. So I said with regards to Seattle, they have the 4th fewest sacks this season, just 23. It's not the Legion of Boom anymore. They are 3rd in the league with takeaways, though. They do have 27. So I thought that it would be a decent opportunity to go with them. I suspect they will get, if you said combined turnovers and sacks for tonight's game, because they're on the road, I'd set it at 2.5. If they were at home, I'd go as high as 3.5. But I think they'll get a couple, but who knows? We need one to be a touchdown, but who knows? You only lose 4 points on DraftKings at the most for giving up points. So don't let that stop you from taking one of the defenses, because if you get an event-based thing where they get 5 sacks, or if they get a touchdown, it'll erase it. I mean, last week, who would have thought New Orleans was going to get 9 sacks? Today, who would have thought they were going to get their ass kicked? Weird stuff happens with defenses, but I think they're in play, but I'm not really excited for them. I'm more interested in Goff than I am the defense. Moving on to running back, since that's the next logical segue, there is my captain. I did not think I was going to say this. It is Todd Gurley. Did not draft him in any season-long leagues. I think I drafted him on 1% of my best ball leagues. I did 215 best ball leagues. I think he's on 3 or 4 of my teams. I wanted no part of him. He is now getting the load. Over the last 4 games, he has been on the field for, I think it's 68, 96, 75, and 74% of the snaps. So that averages out to about 3/4 of the workload. If you look at it all the way back to the season and average it out, it's right around 70%. Okay, that's about where he was before. And we were all worried about him. I was worried about him all into the year. I still am worried about the arthritic knee condition, yada, yada, yada. But this is kind of it. If the Rams don't start winning, they are not going to be in the playoffs. This was a team that was in the Super Bowl just last year, not even a year ago. Sean McVay's in the hot seat. When you're in the hot seat and you're a coach, what should you do? Not if you're Ron Rivera, because he didn't want to do what he needed to do. What should you do? You should give the ball to your best player. And right now, that's Todd Gurley.
It absolutely is, Emac. And
I sound like a talking head with that analysis, but the numbers do bear it out. And I wanted to show how the pendulum, for me, as a non-believer, has swung to where I'm willing to say, yeah, I was wrong, plant my flag. It also helps that his price is discounted across the board. That's also helpful. He's below the quarterbacks, and he's below not all, but some of the receivers.
Yes, he is. Yes, he's Emac. As we approach the 8 o'clock hour here out east, 7 o'clock Central. And we're getting to our second team. Do you want to give a shout out to our sponsors, our beautiful sponsors, Super Draft?
Oh, it's a change. We did an audible. Forgot to mention that to you. It's okay. We have Fantasy Draft.
All right.
So Fantasy Draft is the sponsor for tonight's show. They are the home of rake-free daily fantasy sports. How did they do that? Well, you sign up for a little subscription. Mine is $5.99 a month, and for those 30 days, I get $1,000 that I can play. Well, I don't get $1,000. I can play $1,000 without having to up my subscription. If I get close to that, I can just go up to the next level. I think it's like $12 for the month and $3,000. So it's not going to set you back very much at all. In fact, it's actually kind of cheap by comparison. If I were to play through those same $1,000 over on DraftKings or FanDuel, that would cost me somewhere between $120 and $150 in rake. Here it's costing me $5.99. I would rather pay $5.99 than $120. Just me. Other people may feel better by paying for those premium brands. You don't have to do that here. So that's something that's very, very helpful. They also have the $200,000 Hooters special main event tournament on Sundays. This Sunday, it was 5% away from filling. So not only was it rake free, 5% of the entries didn't fill. They filled it a couple times, but not in the last 2 weeks. So there's advantages there. I played in some double ups there that also did not fill. Their marquee double up was the $2 one was a few shy of filling. So not only was it rake free, there was implied value. Now you need to go monetize that, but it's a little easier to do.
Well, thank you, EMAC.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Fantasy Draft.
Thank you to our sponsors, Fantasy Draft. Let's keep it rolling on the LA Rams. We know EMAC is high on Mr. Todd Gurley. We know how he feels about Jared Goff. But this wide receiver position is interesting tonight. And I think, there's two players in particular that most people are probably looking at, and that's the Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp dilemma or decision that most will probably be faced with tonight. Throwing in Brandon Cooks, who, Brandon Cooks is like a year after year 1,000-yard receiver. It just hasn't worked out for him this season. He had the concussion injury mid-year. Hasn't quite worked his way back into the lineup as far as making plays for this team. So, EMAC, as you approach this position tonight, where were you putting your money?
It's tough. I was fired up for Cooper Kupp. Recency bias has me with Robert Woods. Yep. And I said the tricky part is deciding between the two of them. Cooper Kupp had the stranglehold on targets for the first part of the season. Robert Woods had 19 last week.
Incredible.
1-9. Do you know how many he had 3 weeks ago?
11.
0. He had 0, but he had a carry.
He had a carry. I'm thinking of a different game. Sorry.
Yeah. How does that happen? I don't know. But you've got so I'm leaning towards Cook just slightly because he's a little cheaper. I believe it might be Kupp who's in my main lineup. I'll have to go back. I was playing around with my main lineup there. But those were two guys that were in consideration for my main lineup, which is why I had to split what I was doing. But we'll talk about that in a second. But they're 1A, 1B. I wouldn't fight you for it. And I don't know what the right answer is. We've seen both of them with phenomenal multi-target games with just amazing targets. Woods also hasn't reached the end zone yet this year. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. Only 2 targets for Cooks last week.
Yeah.
What other
name? Cooks, waving off Cooks. I will play Josh Reynolds before I play Cooks.
Yeah. Reynolds saw 4 targets last week.
It's for the savings, but.
And rightfully so, but I think that's one of the names that people are looking at for tonight is Reynolds, just because of the cost. And there's a chance that he can, he's got some speed to burn. So there's a chance he catches one, he can take it and get into the end zone. And then we get to the tight end position, Tyler Higbee, who's been pretty good since taking over for Gerald Everett. How are you approaching Higbee tonight?
So Higbee, it's very, very, very site dependent. On FanDuel, or from notes if I'm recalling off the top of my head. So I said he is, I believe he's more expensive on FanDuel. On DraftKings, even though he's more expensive than some of the receivers, the guys I'm not, let me phrase this. You're not getting his savings like we were last week from him. Full stop. We're not going to get a career game from him like we did last week. Also, full stop. There is no Jared Everett tonight. We know that the Rams will throw to the tight end. I think he will get 5 targets tonight. I am comfortable for his price compared to the other receivers proportionally that I'm willing to play him, even though his prices come up dramatically. You need to forget what we got him for last week and then look at what the numbers are telling you for this week. It's the easiest way to say it. It's different on both sides, so check out what you need to do. He is in one of my 2 main lineups.
Okay, all right. So pretty high on Higbee if you're including in one of the main lineups. He's been good. So for the cost, absolutely, you got to find it somewhere. You got to save it somewhere. There aren't too many cost savings options out there. He seems like he's one of them for tonight. Sounds like you're capitalizing on that where you can. Bringing us to the kickers, we have Jason Bailey for the Seahawks. We didn't touch on that. And then Legatron, Greg Zuerlein for the Rams. Typically kickers are, if you can get 10, 12 points out of a kicker, that's a good night. Is there one that you're higher on than the other? I know oftentimes we default to the home kicker. Zuerlein is the cheaper of the two, at least on DraftKings. I know that. How are you approaching those guys tonight?
Yeah, it's like 200 apart on DK, 500 I think on FanDuel. I just said I default to Zuerlein, home kicker, but if you have a strong preference one way or the other, go for it. I don't think it's a problem if you aren't going with those guys. I did not have Tyler Lockett locked or listed in my when I was doing my crunch here. I need to recrunch.
You better recrunch that.
I needed to take him out because he kept coming into my main lineup, and I didn't want him in there.
Maybe, or maybe that was just a sign that you really shouldn't include Lockett in your lineups tonight.
We will see.
At least included in there. We got about 12, 13 minutes until kickoff for tonight. Getting down to it. One last spot to talk about. And I think a spot that I know you've at least mentioned in your article there, Emac, that not a bad choice for tonight, perhaps, even though they're going against the Seahawks, and we expect the Seahawks to put up some points. Is this LA Rams defense?
I think it's okay. They've been much improved this season. Let me get over here to my notes. Let's see. I said Russell Wilson has only been intercepted 4 times this season. Think about that. 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Now, on the flip side, he has been sacked a bunch. We still have a similarly crappy Seahawk line. They're built for run blocking. Does not help them for pass blocking. The other thing that's surprising is the number of times he has been sacked, despite the Seahawks being more of that run blocking unit here. So Russell has been sacked 16 times in the last 4 games. I think the Rams are definitely in play, and they are on one of the... There we go. We've got the seal of approval from your pup. They are on one of my main lineups.
Sorry about that. So, yeah, the Rams defense has been tough. I mean, you got the best defensive player in the league in Aaron Donald. Like, how do you not like that? It's impossible not to. And they put pressure on the quarterback. And while Russ is great at getting out of trouble, he finds himself in it often too, right? And you're going to go down from time to time. So,
well, there's also a reason he only has 4 interceptions. He will take the sack. He lives to fight another day. And
that's exactly it, Emac. I think that's a great point that you make. It's okay to take a sack from time to time. Now, you don't want to take a sack where you're in the red zone or you're in that field goal zone, 30-yard line and in. So, put yourself out of the opportunity to kick a field goal. But he takes it when he has to, and he lives to fight another day. And I think these Seahawks games, they're always close games. I saw a comment on YouTube here just a minute ago. The Seahawks always end up winning close games. A lot of the point differential isn't very great. Now, there's 2 ways you can look at that. There's one way of, they play a lot of close games, and you're gonna, it's gonna happen. You play a lot of close games. A good team knows how to win. A good team finds a way to win close games.
Or they lack the killer instinct and they can't put anyone away.
That's another way to look at it too. And they're struggling to put teams away, and it can only last for so long. Eventually, the luck's going to stop. Russ isn't always going to be able to break free and make that play on 3rd and 17 or whatever it is, like he seems to be able to do game after game. But it should be a good one tonight. I expect it to be a close game. Hey, NFC West, any division game is always going to is typically going to be a close game. These two teams know each other well. Should be a good one. Two good quarterbacks playing tonight, and we'll see where it goes. But definitely a close one. And the Rams defense, they could make that play. You got Jalen Ramsey on the outside too. Is this a game where he, makes a play on the outside, takes one to the house? We'll see. But with Aaron Donald out there, definitely like the Rams defense a little bit, but not a lot. Emac, you want to unveil our lineups? I think we're about 9 minutes till kickoff. We can kind of get into that. Is there any other topics or individuals that we didn't touch on that we want to make sure we talk about?
I really think we hit on everything there.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Since the tee box is yours again, Emac, you're at 3-2 on the season. Who do you like? It sounds like Gurley was your captain. Let's go ahead and break it down for this week. All right,
so I did something really, really strange with my alternative lineup. But my main lineup, and I'm designating this my main one, it's in the third of my money in play. It is Todd Gurley at captain. It is both quarterbacks, Goff and Wilson. It is Jacob Hollister and DK Metcalf. And then it is Greg Zuerlein. So my one sort of problem I had with it, which is why I went with the second team, but then I didn't fix my problem. So the things I didn't like about this, I don't have a Seahawks running back, and we've already said that they're going to run the ball a lot. Little problem there. And I don't have one of the key Rams receivers that I think is key tonight in Woods or Kupp. So there's kind of the hole in that lineup. So I pivoted, and I said I'm going to play Robert Woods, so he replaced DK Metcalf. And then I went with both defenses. I don't know that I've played both defenses yet in a lineup this year, but here we are. I'm looking for some big plays, and that can happen in a variety of ways. It could be lucky, or it could be because one of the teams is down and needs to play catch up. We know that the sack upside is with the Rams going against Wilson. You said Darnold, of course, who's absolutely phenomenal. But on the flip side, if Goff has one of his craptastic games, well, then we've got it on the other side. I can honestly say I've never played both defenses and both quarterbacks in the same lineup, though, as a, quote, main lineup. This one is in 20% of my cash in play. And then the rest is mixing and matching with my overall look. But on those, my volume ones, I have 30% of Gurley as my captain. So okay. He's captain in both these. So I'm going heavy on Gurley.
You bring up an interesting point before I get to talk about where I went with my squad and our heads up matchup. These showdown slates, it's so hard to only do one lineup, especially. I mean, for the other games, obviously, if you're doing a large contest, it's impossible. But for these, anything can happen in one game, and we've seen it, especially on these Sunday night games, where the favorites don't always end up winning, right? Or what you think is going to happen might not go that direction. So it definitely benefits, I think, to create those two lineups. There's like, this is what I think, but this also might happen, and I feel like I need to account for that. So it sounds like you're doing that with your second lineup.
I'm still really strong. Gurley and captain on majority of my lineups, and then both quarterbacks on the majority of my lineups. So that's my stance. I needed to differentiate just a little bit, though. That's a lot of salary cap in 3 players.
It is indeed, yes. So I'll talk about where I went. I went different direction, Emac. So this will be great for us to revisit, and we can talk about it maybe next week, the direction that you went compared to where I went tonight. I went with both Seattle running backs. So I learned my lesson last week. I didn't go as heavy on the running backs for either team as I should have, realizing that they do like to run the ball. So my captain spot, which allowed me to get a little bit more, leave a little extra money available to spend elsewhere, Penny was the cheaper of the two. And since they're pretty much splitting carries at this point, I went with Penny in the captain spot. So I feel confident he's going to have a good game. He may not be the highest scorer in the game, but I think he's going to have a good game. It allowed me to also then play Carson and Russell Wilson for the Seahawks. And on the Rams side of the ball, I did have to kind of pick and choose here a little bit. So I went with Gurley just out of sheer, we know he's going to get the ball, right? There's no doubt about that. I don't like Gurley's matchup tonight. And I didn't go with Goff because of cost. I went with Robert Woods. I thought Woods, because the targets, I saw the number of targets he had last week. That's eye-opening, and I like his chances tonight, which left me with a little bit, just enough to include Legatron. So for the Rams side of the ball, I have Gurley, Woods, and Zerline, Penny in the captain, Carson, and Wilson. So no Jared Goff tonight. I'm sure hoping that if he throws a touchdown pass, it goes to Robert Woods. Okay. That's where you're going to get me.
We'll see. We'll see. This is crazy. I'm looking at YouTube. They're saying these are the toughest shows. There's so many options. Yeah, I gotta say it. Oops. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to arrange.
No, it's all right. I think one thing to take a look at, and yeah, I am hoping lightning strikes twice. We know they're going to get the ball. For me, these showdown slates are about volume. Like who do you know is going to be getting the ball? Yes, and I think also something to keep in mind is doing a lineup and a head-to-head like you and me, Emac. The lineup that you put probably is going to be a little bit different than the lineup you might put in a large contest, right? You're going to want to have some differentiating factors in those. You might take a little bit of a gamble. You might include a Josh Reynolds or something like that to differentiate yourself. In a head-to-head, I want to go with, or in a smaller contest, who I know is going to be getting the ball. I know that Carson and Penny are both going to be getting 10-plus touches. I know Gurley's going to get 15 carries tonight. I know that for a fact. I know Russell Wilson's going to have the ball in his hands. So for me, that's enough for me to feel good about playing both running backs, just the fact that we know that Seattle is going to run the ball. We know they're going to get the carries.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's sorry, too many things going on. Yeah, so here's some interesting stuff here. There's people talking about chat. It says Jimmy G is not a good quarterback. I don't know about that one. Pat's Chiefs showdown was easy. Maybe. Would it be easy with the Saints and the guy winning the currently in the leaders amongst the leaders in the fantasy draft $200,000 contest. He stacked both sides of it with each quarterback. So I didn't look recently, but he was in first and third. One with the Jimmy G led team and one with Drew Brees led team. We'll have to see where he ended up after. There was a higher scoring afternoon games than normal, but.
You know what? In putting those lineups the other day, it's like Drew Brees was going against the 49ers, but he was so cheap for Drew Brees. It was so tempting. He was right there. It's the cheapest you probably will ever see Drew Brees in a contest.
Yeah. That just goes to show that do we really what can happen with the defenses? The 49ers they're phenomenal on defense, but Drew Brees got him. This is the same Saints team that lost to Atlanta. How's that happen?
Yeah.
Any
given Sunday, as they say, right? Anything can happen. These guys, no matter the
Gates, of course, is winning now.
If you're in the NFL, you're a great athlete. You're a good player. These guys are playing for pride. These guys are playing for contracts for next season. That's what you see a lot of these teams do at this point. Guys that would be free agents, what have you, they're playing for their livelihoods for 2020. So they're competing at a high level. Anything can happen. We got about a minute here until kickoff. So Emac and I have shared our lineups. Emac is riding Gurley in his captain spot. I'm going with the Seattle. Emac, I got to be honest, man. Like for a Seattle Seahawks, like if this was the Bears game, you better believe I'd have my boy Mitch Trubisky in that captain's lineup, who's got fired, by the way. I want to go ahead and mention that. So I will be rooting for the Seahawks. I need him to beat the Rams for my Bears to stay alive in the playoff hunt. But you're going with the Rams. What the heck?
Emotional insurance, maybe? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. To me, it feels like if this was at home, I might be shading a little more to the Seahawks. But to me, them on the road, the Rams having the better defense makes it tough if they're going to be running. But this can all immediately implode if Jared Goff has a crappy game. And then the best laid plans go, the Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan till you get hit in the mouth.
That's exactly right. Speaking of a plan, we got a plan tomorrow night for the Monday night show. You guys tune in for Live Before Locks. We got the NFC East matchup. I don't know about you. I am personally very excited for tomorrow night's game. I don't care about the NFC East one bit. I'm excited for Eli Manning's return to the lineup. As an individual who lived in New York for a few years during the Eli Manning heyday, great guy, great sense of humor. Rooting for him. I hope he has a great game tomorrow night. Eli, I know you're not watching, but if anybody that knows Eli, let him know that we're rooting for him. We support Eli Manning. I think he's going to have a great game tomorrow night. I'm excited for it.
All right. So Eli Manning, career, 244 games, 124 wins, 120 losses.
Not exactly.
This is courtesy of the football database, so I don't. I'm assuming it's accurate.
And 2 Super Bowl titles. Isn't that amazing? And then you got a guy like Dan Marino or whoever, got other great players that don't have any.
Yeah.
But it's about performing when it counts. And tomorrow night it counts. It's primetime game. We know Eli shows up when it counts. I think he will tomorrow night. We're here at kickoff for the game. Good luck, everyone, tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Emac, our old pal, any closing thoughts?
No, I think that's it. As Eric mentioned, tune in tomorrow. We've got NFL Live Before Lock. We also, starting at 9:30, have the NBA DFS Strategy Show at 11. You're going to get Laffy and Manny Laura. That is the NFL DFS Strategy Show. There's NHL tomorrow, so you get Jake Hari running his video. It might be with Nolan Kelly, depending on how many games are on the slate. And then you get the deeper dive at 5 o'clock with Adam and Laffy, and then Live Before Lock, NBA style, bringing you up for that last hour. I am not sure who is on the show tonight. I know Eddie's done 6 days in a row. I think he gets Monday off, but Josh Engelman should be back in the fold. So with that, gamers, give us a thumbs up. You can follow us on Twitter, and definitely tune into the game tonight. This should be a good one. With that, gamers, good luck.